All that Jim and I ever did was do stuff that made us laugh.
Welcome to Shooting Stars, and without any further ado, let's meet out front.
What's going on? What are you doing?
Yes, welcome to Shooting Stars.
What they came up with was this format that totally showcased their own very unique humour, but it had quite a rigid structure, so that even when they went off on a real flight of fancy, they could always come back to the quiz.
And my first question in the true or false round goes to Charlie.
The guests were there just as sort of little pillars to hold up the show, and for Jim and Bob to beat the hell out of if and when they wanted. And it was hilarious.
After years of delighting and baffling audiences with their unique brand of humour, Vic Reeves and Bob Mortimer turned the traditional panel show on its head in 1995, when Shooting Stars hit Britain's TV screens.
It's a bear!
Over 5 series, they combined the surreal with slapstick, witty wordplay and schoolboy silliness. You didn't tune in for the Q&A, but to see Vic and Bob enjoying themselves, and, in their unscripted way, somehow becoming the biggest, most influential double act of the 1990s. The story of Shooting Stars begins in late 1986. Bob Mortimer, on the outside a perfectly normal solicitor from Middlesbrough, is taken to Goldsmith's Tavern in south-east London to see The Big Night Out, a Sunday variety show hosted by Darlington's Vic Reeves. Real name, Jim Moyer.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, please,
The first time I saw or met Jim was a big night out in a room above a pub, and I went there with a sort of mutual friend from Middlesbrough, and enjoyed the show very much.
Zara, film producer David Lean is responsible for the Findus range lean cuisine.
You know, maybe it's because we were from the same region or whatever, but we both had the same sense of humour, and we just got on like a house on fire. We were immediately best friends, I think.
A big round of applause for Captain Birdseye! What the dickens have you done with all those little children?
Jim would do a lot of characters on the live show, and at the beginning, anyone who was knocking around could come on and do something whilst Jim got changed.
In sharp contrast to the anti-Thatcher political agenda dominating stand-up comedy at the time, Big Night Out was a bizarre mixture of Spike Milligan-esque surrealism and Eric and Ernie-style light entertainment.
It's always slightly mystified me that Vic and Bob were seen as this impenetrable, weird, surrealist act. And I think that was mainly a perception of Southerners. Northerners always accepted them as just a couple of funny guys.
Right. I've seen it recently, not just on video, not on camera. I've actually seen policemen in their toques just squirting acid rain onto whales.
In tandem with the Big Night Out, I was doing DJing at a club called Swag, which was run by Adam Ross, who was Jonathan's brother. So Jonathan used to come down there, and I was kind of doing bits of the Big Night Out in there. And
Jonathan thought I was your boyfriend, didn't he?
Did he?
Mm.
Well, you were, weren't you?
Well, I was for briefly, yeah.
But he used to come down. I mean, there's lots of people came down and word of mouth got out.
Before we go any further, let's meet our Britain's top light entertainment, Mr. Vic Reeves, ladies and gentlemen.
Word around South London reached Jules Holland, who also became a fan. It led to Jim asking celebrities ridiculous questions for the first time on national television.
Here's a question anyway. Right. Rod Stewart, the soccer-mad Nosy Parker of pop, has been married to an astonishing 370,000 women. Jimmy, can you name them?
I remember seeing him do a thing on the Tube, I think it was. A very odd kind of daft game show thing he did. And I remember seeing that thinking, actually, no, it is quite funny, this. And I eventually went down to see them do what was the last ever Big Night Out in Goldsmith's Tavern, when they were doing it just in a pub. And I remember kicking myself thinking, why didn't I go and see him before? Because he'd been doing it for a while by then. It was just the funniest thing I had ever seen.
By 1988, Jim's live show was so popular it moved to a bigger venue, the Albany Empire in Deptford. Devoted fans, including Paul Whitehouse and Charlie Higson, were able to come on and do a turn.
They used to do a different 2-hour show every week, so they needed a lot of other people to come in and do bits and pieces. And you'd turn up and he'd say, this is your costume, you've got to do this. You're a novelty act, a man with 20-foot-long trousers or something.
With a cast of future comedy hotshots like Mortimer, Higson and Whitehouse, Vic Reeves' Big Night Out had become an underground phenomenon. And it attracted the attention of Alan Mark, producer for the independent TV company Channel X, whose frontman Jonathan Ross was another Vic Reeves fan.
We made the pilgrimage down to Deptford to see Big Night Out, which is this kind of crazy show. Went on for hours. And he came out and did 3 Rod Stewart songs, dressed in a suit made of horse brasses. And we liked it so much we thought, you know, let's try and do something with this, you know, see if we could get it onto TV.
Alan and Jonathan Ross helped give Jim and Bob exposure as TV performers, providing regular cameos on Jonathan's chat shows. Big Night Out's big breakthrough came in 1990, when Seamus Cassidy at Channel 4 commissioned a series with Jonathan and Alan producing. But Jim and Bob were happy doing the live show, so those Channel 4 commissioners were just a little taken aback by the way the news was greeted.
We went into Seamus Cassidy's office with Alan Mark took us in there, and it was a case of would you like to do a show on Channel 4? And I said, how much do we get for it? Which wasn't really the thing that you're supposed to ask, I don't think.
Not since Spike Milligan's Q series had TV screened such a willfully odd show. Yet it was also strangely traditional, as Jim and Bob combined music, variety acts and physical comedy with what could only be described as performance art. Charlie Higson and Paul Whitehouse were around to help out, accompanied by some singing donuts.
Mr. Popkins, we love you. Mr. Popkins, don't go away.
Big Night Out attracted a fanatical student fan base, and after Series 1, the show went on the road, turning Jim into an unlikely pop star.
Well, I'm driving down the highway at the speed of light.
We went off and did a university tour, which was, I think we did about 16 dates, and it was like being in a band. You had Ben Eltons and people like that who were doing politics, but no one was doing music, so I ended up on the front of the NME. Then I did Born Free and ended up on Top of the Pops, and that got to number 3, so that sort of increased the pop fans. Then I think there was another series of Big Night Out, and then Dizzy, and Dizzy got to number 1 when we were at the Colston Hall in Bristol, and it just went berserk, and there was like, you know, we had girls and young boys screaming outside, and barriers with people, you know, holding them back as they tried to tear our garments.
But Reeves Mania and a cult TV hit weren't nearly enough for Jim and Bob, who now felt ready to try and come up with a new comedy vehicle. In 1992, they made Weekenders, a sitcom pilot co-starring future Fast Show regulars Simon Day and Paul Whitehouse. Channel 4 turned it down, but the boys just wouldn't let it lie.
I know we haven't got a doorbell, but you could have knocked, couldn't you? No, I couldn't.
We wanted to do a different show after the Big Night Out, but Channel 4 wanted another Big Night Out, and so the BBC said we could do what we would like to do, and that was The Smell of Reeves and Mortimer.
The Smell lingered on BBC Two between 1993 and 1995. It marked a further development in what Jim did best, mucking about behind a desk. And now Bob joined him there to help subvert and dismantle the elements of the standard light entertainment programme.
Yes. Oh, You didn't forget to book the acts tonight, did you?
No, I've got it here.
What?
When they moved to BBC Two, they actually wanted to do something way more ambitious and much more akin to the kind of Python way of doing sketches out and about and then studio stuff. And even a nod to Two Ronnies with a lot of the singing and dancing.
Like a shrimp in a suitcase laying on a window ledge. Like a pair of tan slippers and they're underneath a hedge.
Despite enjoying a decent budget, Smell Of never quite broke Reeves and Mortimer into the big time the way the BBC hoped. The next assault on the mainstream was At Home with Vic and Bob, an all-night Christmas special in 1993. The strand that jumped off the screen was Shooting Stars.
The quiz in Vic Reeves' Big Night Out Live the questions were all impenetrable. Who's got the largest meat harness, Cliff Mitchellmore, or they were just, it was all nonsense, but very funny. And so we thought, well, if we make it half proper quiz, half Vic Reeves' big night out quiz, it might actually be broadcastable.
Wendy, Patrick Moore was the first person on television to swallow a fly live.
Yes.
Correct!
That night, I think we just sort of tried to do quite a straightforward quiz, I think.
Yeah.
It fitted into that evening with Vic and Bob. And it went down very well.
So well, in fact, that the BBC commissioned the first series of Shooting Stars in 1995 and inadvertently changed the TV panel show forever. The Beeb felt this format could introduce Jim and Bob's unique brand of silliness to a wider audience. So, Jim and Bob put together a team of trusted allies from previous productions. The first recruit was producer Alan Mark.
Welcome to Shooting Stars. Welcome, whoever you are.
They asked me to get involved, and that was kind of a deliberate attempt by Jim and Bob to broaden up their appeal by, doing a kind of, on the face of it, was a quiz, but was completely sort of perverted by their sort of style of comedy.
Also back on board were two Smell veterans. Charlie Higson continued as associate producer, with the occasional on-screen appearance, and stage manager Mark Mylod would direct, leading on to duties on The Fast Show and ultimately Hollywood. But it could all have been so different when in the first production meeting, Jim and Bob voiced concerns he might be too inexperienced for the job.
I just kind of paused a bit and said, no, I think I should direct it, and looked down at my page and made imaginary notes for about 5 minutes while my face burned scarlet. And they didn't say anything. They were even worse at any kind of conflict or than I am. So they just didn't say anything, so I just carried on and started directing it.
While Mark Mylod was learning directing skills, Ulrika Johnson was being promoted from pilot team member to series team captain. It wasn't her talents reading the weather on TVAM or presenting Gladiators that led her to shooting stardom, but getting gotcha'd by Noel Edmonds.
I asked them why they thought of me, and actually Jim said that he'd seen me doing a Noel Edmonds Gotcha Oscar, where I was completely set up by Noel Edmonds and I took it very seriously in a chat, and they found it very endearing that I took this competition, this challenge, so seriously, and then was found out, and they thought that I dealt with it so well, and they thought... But Bob said that he saw something in that which sort of made him laugh or made him maybe see something else that nobody else had seen, whatever. So it's just all kind of the luck of the draw, really.
Denise, can I just check...
Let me again.
Is your microphone working all right? Is it all right?
We always used the women who were involved in virtually everything we do as like we're a pair of schoolboys and we're too pathetic to chat them up, which we followed through all the way through Shooting Stars. So it gives it all a kind of soap opera feel.
It's not working.
Yes, well, let's attend to it. Just shout.
Sit down! Sit down! It's yours, Fred! It's yours.
Yes.
Get off it!
Try yours.
Bob was always, like insulting Ulrika, but you knew that he quite fancied her. Is that true?
What, Ulrika?
Yeah, that's what you were doing with her, isn't it?
Yeah, I did fancy Ulrika, yeah, all right.
They had their beauty, now they needed a comedy beast, and stand-up Mark Lamar became captain of Team A.
That's absolute crap, and you know it. No.
We were doing something at Teddington. And
it was The Word, wasn't it? It was the last ever Word or something.
Yeah, The Word. Because he was on The Word, and he said he was out of a job now. I said, well, why don't you come and work for us?
Lovely, Mark. Have you been doing...
No, whatever it is, no. Lies.
Jim and Bob quite liked the idea of getting a sort of an acerbic, quite grumpy stand-up involved, who they could kind of work against almost rather than with. And Mark Lamar was on the circuit being, quite the sort of gruff type of guy he is.
Hi, Mark. 50s, greasy, greaseball Mark. You said it. Yeah, you said it.
They said, would you be involved in the show, and we'd like you to sit there and, if you want to be funny, you can be, otherwise just moan at us all the time.
Mark, do you want to go?
Take it off him. Go on, give it a mark. He'll have a shot.
We're not scientists over these things, you know, like, I remember I saw Matt doing a tryout stand-up or something like that, and he was very, very funny. Matt Lucas, who became George Dawes, just said, well, why don't you want to come and do this? It's good fun.
Matt Lucas had previous form with Jim and Bob after appearing in The Smell of Reeves and Mortimer at the impressionable age of 21. But Matt was already a veteran, a true child of TV.
Matthew, you've got a question.
Yes, what was the worst punishment that you've ever had for not doing your school homework?
Hey, there's somebody missing now! It's the man with the scars! It's Georgie Dawes!
Well, the name George Dawes came from Jim and Bob, definitely, and they wanted me to wear a nappy. And I put my foot down. I said, I don't want to wear a nappy on television. I'll wear a blue romper suit, and it came and it was pink, so that is compromise. And they just gave me free rein to do whatever I fancied doing, which was very generous of them.
Hands and faces. Hands and faces. So, hands and faces. And arses and things. Ricky's got 5 marks and Lee with 10!
We were in the studio next to Top of the Pops, and after the show, I had to make the journey from my dressing room to the studio via the corridor where Top of the Pops was filmed, and I just remember doing a Shooting Stars show and then coming back towards my dressing room, and this kind of 15-year-old girl just looking at me and going, looks attractive.
Welcome to Shooting Stars. Welcome.
In no time at all, Jim and Bob adapted their unique style of comedy into a looser yet more accessible anarchy. The results of this simultaneous dumbing down and sexing up can still be seen today on the nation's building sites.
It's Ladies' Night! Ladies! Ladies!
Vic!
Oh.
Yes, Vic, yes!
Oh, ladies! Ladies!
I think the one that sustained best through all the series was probably Jim's leg rubbing stroke what's the word? Lasciviousness. To,
you
know, like
me being lascivious towards one of the lady contestants, who was always placed on my right for that very reason. So we'd say, who are the guests? And like you might have 2 ladies, so we'd decide which one would be the one that would get the leg rubbing treatment, which incidentally came from I got a tape when I was with Island Records. They gave me a tape of some demos that people had sent, and one of them was this old bloke who was singing Christmas songs, and you could hear him going, like, rubbing his trousers as he was singing the songs to the children. So, hey, Santa's here, and he's brought the presents.
Russell, this is your question.
Jim and Bob's mutual love of the absurd found a natural home on Shooting Stars, the shining example of this being the club's sing-around.
I really don't know where the club singer came from. I think I probably just did it one day, didn't I? And then we thought that's quite a good little game to try and work out what I'm singing. We were on tour and we were coming around through Leicester, and we were listening to local radio, and there was a bloke on there, and he was going, it's a dove. Do you remember? It was something like that.
Do you know? Now we say, I remember something,
and we thought it was hilarious.
And the Dove from Above round provided Shooting Stars' most enduring catchphrase.
Iranu. We were going through a period, I think, when we liked... it was a bit of sort of mythical history, wasn't it? And it would be the Temple of Ishra and stuff like that we'd be talking about. So, Irano and Uvavu were just sort of like mythical, maybe slightly African-sounding names, which didn't mean anything.
Boff!
Mr.
Hi.
Frank Bob. Hi.
And if you were a guest, taking yourself too seriously was exactly what Jim and Bob were hoping for.
Can I say something before you ask me the question? Is that allowed? Of
course you can, Frank.
I've got this marked as an intelligent programme.
And you're right to do that.
And I do wish my name was spelt like that. It would save a lot of trouble.
Well, that's how it is spelled.
Boff. No, it's B-O-U-G-H.
Frank Boff was a good one. We misspelt his name. We spelt it as a B-O-F-F, as in the fart.
Yeah.
And but he pointed that out quite seriously. If it was a comedian, they would have it would have kind of flowed a bit. But the fact that he pointed it out, you've misspelt my name, really that was a high point, I think, for me.
Danny.
Yes.
Do you want to say hello to your wife?
Yeah, sure, yeah.
Well, go on, but don't be long.
You see, it's not so much a game show, we're more stooges in a sketch. That's what
Exactly.
it is. We're stooges in a sketch. That's it.
No, you're stodgy.
There was nothing worse than somebody trying to be funnier than Jim and Bob and actually breaking their cycle of comedy that was going on between them by, interjecting with something wacky or funny. It was better just to kind of, sit there.
Really?
But just sitting there wouldn't always save you from being chosen to play the dreaded endgame, a weekly changing final humiliation devised by Jim and Bob.
I'm just inserting the celery, Lisa. If you can clench it. Clench it. Ah, that's it. Now we're on. Here we go. She's gone for the hummus. She's got a lump of hummus.
Now reverse.
Now reverse towards the dog.
It was always a thing. Was just sitting watching it, and for a second every time you think, look at that little tableau. There's Lisa Stansfield with celery between her legs, and a dog following her, trying to eat the residue off the celery.
The show's huge success coincided with the exuberance of the mid-90s loaded generation, and with one giant gulp, Ulrika Johnson was transformed into the very first ladette.
Are you ready, Ulrika?
Ready.
To down that pint in one, let's have that clock ready, and here's the Lagathon Challenge. Go on, Ulrika.
It was just something she could do. And if anyone had a skill, we would try and exploit it.
Did you hear what about that glass of beer? Will you ask Ulrika? Shall I tell you? It wasn't a real pint. It was a third of a pint. It was a dummy glass.
I dispute that. I'll have my lawyers talk to your lawyers about that. Yeah, the pint glass was not entirely a pint.
Go on, do it!
It was a fake glass, but there was 3/4 of a pint in there, which was took quite a lot to down. We're giving away a big trade secret now. Everyone's disappointed.
The TV studio had become Jim and Bob's playground, and they cheerfully broke all the rules of grown-up panel shows, including the hosts knowing which camera to look at.
I'd endlessly point out during camera rehearsals, OK, Jim, this is your single camera, Bob, this is your single camera, and they would just forget it because they didn't really care. And actually, that was half the fun, and I didn't mind playing the headmaster to that because they kind of needed to be naughty boys. That was kind of part of the game.
Do you know what we used to have? I had a shoe on the top of mine,
You did, yeah.
and you had a hat on yours, didn't you? So because they'd say, "Well, you're on camera one," and Bob's is camera two, but we couldn't ever remember that. So we had a plastic shoe on one, and a hat on the other. So we knew then.
You won't believe what he's just done.
Because they don't like to rehearse too much because they feel that it takes the spontaneity out of the whole show and the process. But that's kind of, I feel, sort of part of the charm of, the whole vibe of what you get from when you watch one of their shows, It looks like a couple of guys having a lot of fun. And they did.
The show was a rating success, and in 1997 won the BAFTA for Best Light Entertainment Programme, despite fears when it started that a friendly rival would steal its thunder.
We were up on the same night when Friends launched on Channel 4, and we were just thinking, oh my God, this is, who knows what's going to happen there. Luckily, I think it went, one show was on at, half an hour after the other one, and so we, Friends was building this audience on Friday nights, and in a way, Shooting Stars would benefit from it, because people were just flicking from one to the other. And so the first series started around 2 million, the usual Reeves and Morton audience, and gradually started to build and build and build, and by the end of the third, I think they were, 4.5, 5, and you could see the sort of graph going that way.
Big ratings means power in television, and Jim and Bob's newfound clout meant as long as they delivered on Shooting Stars, they were allowed to experiment with other programme ideas. In 1997, they started with It's Ulrika.
Jim and Bob went to the Montreux TV Festival or something like that, and in an interview, Bob blurted out, "Yeah, and we're writing a show for Ulrika as well." And he said, "I don't know why I said it, I just thought it was a good idea."
Sadly, It's Ulrika was savaged by the press, but it did feature the first on-screen teaming of Matt Lucas and David Walliams. Jim and Bob had 2 more cracks at the BBC One Saturday tea time audience. Families at War was Shooting Stars meets The Generation Game and lasted 1 series, despite featuring a boy fighting a shed. Randall and Hopkirk Deceased, a remake of the 60s show produced by Charlie Higson with episodes directed by Mark Mylod, also dropped dead prematurely.
Randall and Hopkirk maybe didn't do so well as everyone was hoping, and then and after that experience they were keen to get back to doing their own kind of, real trademark stuff.
House on fire! What kind of house? Terraced house!
Bang Bang, It's Reeves and Mortimer for BBC Two in 1999 proved their talent for surreal comedy was still alive and kicking, as they returned to the more familiar terrain of the sketch show. The series sparked and crackled with their trademark lunacy.
A lot of the real die-hard fans think that Bang Bang, It's Reeves and Mortimer was one of their, the pinnacle of their sort of sketch activity, and it was a great show to work on.
By the time Bang Bang was in production, Charlie Higson, along with previous Reeves and Mortimer alumni Simon Day, Mark Williams, Paul Whitehouse and Mark Mylod, had departed the Vic and Bob Academy for The Fast Show and Comedy Immortality. Undaunted by It's Ulrika, the Swedish lager fraud returned to host high-profile events like the Great Big Election programme, the Royal Variety Performance, and scored 12 points for fluency in the 1998 Eurovision Song Contest.
Alors regardez plus attentivement encore le concours, car ce soir, pour la première fois, la plupart d'entre vous pourra voter par téléphone pour la chanson que vous souhaitez voir gagner.
Boy.
Matt Lucas hung up his romper suit and became a regular fixture on BBC Choice on Sir Bernard Stately Holmes in 1999, and cementing his partnership with David Walliams on Rock Profiles in the same year.
My friend fancies you.
Oh, shut up, George!
She does.
I don't.
She does.
I don't.
She does.
Didn't I fancy him? Just said I'd do him.
But Shooting Stars refused to lie down, and a mixture of sentimental camaraderie and hard-nosed business sense saw the show return in 2002, first on BBC Choice, and then reaching audiences approaching 4 million on BBC Two.
We had this break, and one of the things we noticed was that the BBC kept repeating the show, and it kept getting good viewing figures. And people I'd meet in the street kind of still thought we were making it.
It wasn't just a good earner. Matt Lucas loved the format too.
I remember kind of haranguing Jim and saying, come on, let's do some more Shooting Stars. This would be really fun, because we were just hanging out together and I hadn't seen much of Jim and Bob for a few years, and we were just all having a laugh, and I said, come on, let's do this again.
But Shooting Stars Mark II saw changes to the production team and the quiz teams.
Hello, I'm Mark Lamar, and this is Never Mind the Buzzcocks.
Mark Lamar was by then doing Buzzcocks, and so he didn't feel right going back to doing Shooting Stars. So they drafted in Will Self and Johnny Vegas to sort of freshen up the lineup.
I'm prepared to be there for you even when you do wet yourself, which is frequently, let's face it.
Sometimes it's real drink, and sometimes it's because I like to.
Very rapidly, what I found out when I began working with Jim and Bob was that they didn't want me to be myself. It was a kind of, anti-psychotherapy in that way, and that they were determined to impose upon me this persona so that I could take up this team captain role. And, their perception of me was that I was kind of, viciously erudite, this kind of know-it-all who was full of arcane words.
Now then, Will.
Hello, you chilly torrent of drivel. I kind of fiercely resented that and felt undermined and very distressed, and often would leave the set weeping. I self-harmed. I developed bulimia. It was really quite tragic.
I've on the rocks, ain't no big surprise.
You're going to sing us a song, Johnny?
And permanent guest Johnny Vegas's booze-fueled rants meant that in terms of unscripted anarchy, Jim and Bob may have finally met their match.
I mean, it's difficult because you tell Johnny, can you keep a rant down to 30 seconds, and it's impossible to go on for 30 minutes.
Dun, 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 dun. First they say they want you, and they really need you.
Occasionally it would almost inspire mutiny, where he was rambling on for so long, Jim and Bob couldn't interrupt him or stop him. And Ulrika would just get bored, get up, walk out, go to the toilet, come back. He's still talking. And, you know, although the end result, when you edited it down, people wouldn't really tell, but some of those evenings were just incredible because it was just sort of madness.
Next round is the clips round. We're going to show both teams a clip, and thereafter...
While not reaching the ratings heights of the earlier series, the show performed well and gave Matt Lucas the perfect platform to experiment with new looks and characters, some of whom would go on to become very familiar indeed.
Thank you very much.
One of the happiest moments in my life was going into the makeup room while we were filming Shooting Stars, while they were recording, and getting into this costume and makeup and getting ready to perform George's song, which that week was Peanuts, which was a piece of music that I'd written, an instrumental, and then I was just going to shout Peanuts out at various intervals, which is that is a good idea. That is a really good song. And what happened was I put this wig on and these glasses, which enlarged my eyes.
Peanuts! Peanuts!
If you look at the show, you can see Jim and Bob's shoulders just doing that the entire way through. They couldn't stop laughing. And after we recorded the song, the director said to me, "Oh, we'll go again then on that, will we?" I said, "No, absolutely not. That's what Shooting Stars is about. That is funny. You don't need to do anything else to that. Let's move on. You can't get better than that."
I was creased up laughing, I couldn't stop, and Matt knew that I was laughing behind him, so that made him crease up.
Peanuts! 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 What's the song about? Bad peanuts! all right.
The thing about Peanuts, of course, is that wig and that glasses were then the inspiration for Andy Pipkin in Little Britain.
Oi, Davros!
Peaceful here, innit?
And since its first TV appearance in 2003, Little Britain has become the most successful comedy show of the past decade, entertaining audiences of over 9 million viewers. The ongoing success of Shooting Stars continued to give Jim and Bob license to experiment. Jim flirted briefly with reality TV, appearing on I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here and Celebrity Most Haunted. But it was forming Pet Productions with Shooting Stars producer Lisa Clark that signalled their intentions to be media movers and shakers. However, an early outing, the star-studded monkey trousers on ITV, caused few ripples.
Right. Just get on with it. She's dying. You're in love with her.
Monkey trousers.
There's some funny material in it, but I think probably the truth is maybe the show lacked a bit of heart because it was so many different people. It didn't have an identity. And because Jim and I were writing it, so I suppose it's yet another one of those examples of us trying to find almost a format where people will accept our humour.
Cat Trick was something that we wrote it as a film a long time ago, and it sort of took a long time to actually come to fruition.
I've got a surprise for you. You follow me.
Right, horse. Nice one, yeah. Chris, I can't follow you if you don't move, can I? You'll have to move. Oh, Daddy.
Cat Trick's, I think Cat Trick's my favourite thing. Whether it's the best, but it's my favourite thing. I think it's smashing. Super little show.
The rest of the team have not been idle either. Will Self is a novelist, journalist and TV pundit with a movie in development. Johnny Vegas has exploded onto our screens in everything from Midsummer Night's Dream to Sex Lives of the Potato Men. Ulrika Johnson is a columnist for the News of the World and a full-time mum, while Alan Mark's comedy career continues with the animated Pope Town. Matt Lucas providing voices.
Now, one question has a special prize attached to it. Should that be your question, you will hear this noise.
Shooting Stars was Jim Moyer and Bob Mortimer's greatest success, and its legacy is a total reinvention of the traditional panel quiz show, as well as having provided a safe and secure training ground for a new generation of comedy giants.
That's something that I've learnt from Jim and Bob, which is actually not having that much fear of failure and seeing failure as an inevitable consequence of success in comedy. And I felt like I was an apprentice, you know, at their comedy workshop, you know, and I learnt virtually everything I know from them.
I think it's an environment that me and Jim are good at in the studio, behind a desk, messing around with a format, you know, so I'd like to do it again.
I like the dancing, and the last one, the last series.
Dancing.
Didn't you play an organ and I did a little dance?
Oh, yeah.
Do you know what I'm like?
Well, you love doing that, don't you? Put a tash on or something.
Yes, you're quite right, yeah.
Over a decade on, Shooting Stars still sparkles with an effervescent madness that to date has had no equal. And at the heart of the show's success, the friendship between two of the most deeply and defiantly silly men television has ever seen.
We still make each other laugh more than anyone else does, as it were. It still get a sort of kick out of writing the stuff, and you know, like I think it means a lot to both of us if the other one laughs at what we say at work.
Okay, Team B, here's your...
Yes.
Do you know what? From the first moment I met Bob, I don't think anything's really ever changed. It's, you know, we've never had a harsh word to each other ever, and I doubt if we ever will. You know, we just get on without. You know, we still like the same things. We still laugh about the same things, and you know, nothing's changed.
I enjoyed that go.